I know it's wishful thinking on my part.
I don't know, we could get through Amos if he doesn't show up.
It's like,
I don't know, but they're on it with like, we're not talking about that.
Now you can start.
Population.
It is start.
Okay, good to go.
Good evening and welcome to the City Council Study Session of Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. Two items on the agenda, the first of these being discussion regarding the FYE 2026 Capital Improvements Program budget and the FYE 27 to 2030 Capital Improvements Plan. Take it.
All right, so good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jacob Huckabee, Budget Analyst in the Finance Department. I'm here with our Budget Manager, Kim Kaufman, and we're going to be going over the City of Norman's fiscal year ending 2026 Capital Improvement Program budget. So all the funds that are included in the CIP budget, you'll see listed out here. We won't be touching on all these tonight. The majority of these do not have any new project appropriations in FY 26. But we'll be touching on a few, primarily the capital fund and its capital sales tax funded pay-go portion. All those projects involved with the sales tax. Also in the CIP budget, we have the enterprise funds. Some of those do have some new project appropriations in 26, but we won't be talking about those tonight. They're gonna have their own session on May 20th, going over those funds in their entirety. So to kick it off, going with the projects, in the CDBG fund, we have two projects that are identical to last year's appropriations. We have the FYE 26 Habitat for Humanity property acquisition at $40,000 and the FYE 26 Affordable Housing Corporation land acquisition for $100,000 in that grant fund. Moving on to the capital fund, we always start with the status of the capital fund. We do this after we start to plug in all the numbers for FYE 26. So I added a little bit of extra information to this presentation in particular, just to give some context on what this number means. So you'll see in bold in the middle for FYE 26, we're projecting a negative $8.2 million available for new projects. If you go to the line above, the FYE 25 estimated, we highlighted estimated just to put an asterisk there to show that starting in FY 25 in the current year, we take into consideration in the estimation that all of the previously appropriated funds for all projects are going to be spent down to zero going forward. That is not likely to happen at all, but we just do it for our planning purposes to see which direction the capital fund's going and to give us an idea of how much we want to appropriate each year to get where we want to be in the capital fund. And then also going back up one more to FYE 24, the actuals for that fiscal year, this is what's actually spent in that year, no estimations and audited. That number always usually ends up pretty significantly positive. So for FYE 24, for example, that was $3.1 million in the actuals. So this is not related to fund balance and it usually ends up a lot better, but this is just an idea with those estimations where we're going and how much we want to appropriate each year.
Those are the funds that are left over after all reserves
Yes.
have been taken out of the fund balance.
The sales tax portion that we have available. So on the sales tax, when it comes to the revenue each year, this is kind of our starting point for when we start to look at where do we want to put those funds and what do we want to prioritize. Previous councils and budget years, we've usually stuck pretty close to this. When you look at the actual pie chart and the actual spread, it's usually pretty close to these guidelines. So it's a pretty good starting point for when we start this process each year. And looking at
the maintenance amount, 2 years ago, we talked about moving, enlarging that amount. Is that the enlarged amount of 7%?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep, this is the enlarged amount.
Thank you.
So for FYE 26, the actual pie chart looks like this. What we have here is we're projecting for FYE 26, $17.5 million in capital sales tax revenue. This is a flat growth from last year's FYE 25 projections. Of that $17.5 million, we are proposing in the preliminary budget $14.4 million in sales tax expenditures. So what's left over is an unappropriated amount of $3.1 million in FYE 26. Just to give a brief overview of where those are from, In street maintenance, that's 5% below the guidelines. In existing facility maintenance, that's 1% below. In the other projects and debt service category, that's 5% below. And in capital outlay, that's 7% below, to make up an 18% total unappropriated to help tackle the issue that we're seeing in the status of the capital fund in 25 and beyond.
To help increase the fund balance of the capital fund.
So of the projects that are included in the capital fund, first for FY26, we had the proposed recurring sidewalk projects. We had the program for schools and arterials at $100,000, the sidewalk accessibility project at $45,000, the citywide sidewalk project at $125,000, the downtown area sidewalk projects at $50,000, the sidewalks and trails project at $140,000, and the horizontal saw cut program at $40,000. So with all those locations listed below those programs as well, that's a total of $500,000 in sidewalk projects in FY26. For the remainder of the recurring projects, we have two columns here for FY26. So on the left, we have the proposed recurring projects. We have the street maintenance portion that's going to make up asphalt and concrete maintenance in the crack seal program. That totals $2.6 million. We have the city's 50/50 driveway repair program for $10,000, $50,000 in street striping, $2.4 million in various stormwater projects, park amenities and the tree program for $45,000 and $65,000. The IT department's 5% allocation dedicated to hardware upgrades and software upgrades. It's $845,000. $3.4 million in capital outlay, $1.3 million in personnel costs, and just over $1 million in existing facility maintenance. So that totals out to $12,121,002 in proposed recurring projects. So when looking into this FY26 and then the status of the capital fund, we looked at some one-time reductions for FY26 and a few of the recurring programs. So we have the alley repair program, the ADA compliance program, the ODOT audit adjustment project, the sales tax funded PAYGO portion of the bridge maintenance program, the traffic calming program, and the community neighborhood and improvements project. When we were looking at these, we were looking for some projects that had a current balance that could possibly get them through FY26 to help minimize some of the impact on that and to help achieve the goal of getting the capital fund back in the right direction. So these are the projects that are going to not be included, proposed to not be included in the FY26 budget, with the assumption that they'll be refunded in 27 and beyond going forward.
So the monetary amount, like for alley repair, 200,000, that's like a balance that's sitting with it?
No, that was the proposal for FY26.
And there's still the potential to maybe get a grant funding for like an ADA sidewalk compliance or something, even if it's not funded through CIP?
Mhm.
Okay.
And we do have some current fund balances in each one of those categories, so the effort will continue in next fiscal year. We just, if we added more money to each one of those categories, we wouldn't have the capacity to spend it, and it would artificially reduce fund balance. So we're kind of just truing up what's available that the department has today that they'll wind up spending over the course of the next fiscal year. It's not adding to like the reserve balance for each one of those categories. We'll still have plenty of alley repair work going on, and ADA sidewalk compliance is pretty much full-time gig for us.
And we do have two large ADA projects out there that are funded from this source. On 8020, the Brooks Street sidewalk and 12th Avenue Northeast, which is a combined project, and then also the Boyd Street sidewalk from Flood back to Berry. So we've already funded those out of this, and to be honest, that's probably about what our level will be able to do for a little bit. So
It'll be occupied.
yes.
Yeah, and again, these were all included in the projections going forward in 27 and beyond too. So the assumption is they'll be refunded in 27. So for the remainder of the sales tax funded projects in the capital fund, we have the monument signs projects at $345,000, the fifth and final phase of the Rock Creek, Alameda, and East Lindsay wayfinding project for $240,000. The city's regional transit authority contribution for $129,000, and the IT department's network switch replacement project for $210,000.
Which monument signs are we talking about?
The I-35
Those ones.
southbound into Norman, I think, is the first one on the list.
So moving on to the bond portion of the capital fund, we have our three programs. The 2019 transportation bond program, there's two appropriations. First is the 48th Avenue Northwest widening Phase 2, that's $768,000, and then $669,000 for the 2019 bond program management contract. And the 2021-26 street maintenance bond, this is going to be the final year of the approved portion of those projects. We have preventative maintenance at $389,000, the urban concrete category at $2.5 million, and the urban reconstruction category at $902,000. And then for the 2023 bridge maintenance bond program, there's two appropriations. First is the Franklin Road Bridge replacement at $4.1 million, and the 24th Avenue Southwest Bridge rehabilitation for $1.6 million.
Scott, the Franklin Bridge, how far east or west is that one?
It's just west of 36th Avenue Northeast.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just curious, so I haven't been around for a street maintenance bond election. When does that usually happen? Like if it's 26 when it expires, it has to happen sometime in that year?
Yeah, so we're putting that package together now, and we'll be bringing that to council to look at the package and begin looking at the dates when to have that election to make sure that we keep that current and up to date, and that remains a no new increase bond program. Definitely, it's been very successful, very well received by our voters, and one we definitely want to continue into the future. So we'll be bringing that in the near future.
Yep, no tax increase, just keep it the same.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just gonna mention that too, that I've been through two of them, and it started in 2006, I think, and was renewed in 2011, 16, 21, and has been very successful as far as resurfacing or reconstructing neighborhood streets. So it's not for widening projects, it's typically for streets in neighborhoods that need to be repaved or in some cases completely reconstructed. And so I think that's one thing staff's talked about why it's been so popular is in neighborhoods, it's projects people actually see and use every day, coming in and out, going home, going to work. And so, and the part about it not being a tax increase every time has been a primary selling point of it. So I'm hopeful we can get that passed again.
And typically
Continue that
projects
program.
in every single ward, because we got streets in every single ward, and we try to make sure we spread the love.
Yeah, so we've had other communities have recently tried to pass street maintenance bonds from scratch with a tax increase and failed. So it's a program I think we should hold dearly here for now.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one more thing to tack on to that. So with the reconstruction of a street, we're also seeing a chance to improve stormwater when that street gets reconstructed, or is this different?
We've done both. We have had projects, especially in Core Norman, where we're able to go in and do some rehab or include some stormwater drainage. We typically don't necessarily go out and look for those opportunities. And with the neighborhood streets, there doesn't seem to be quite as many of those opportunities that align. But certainly if there's an opportunity for us to combine two projects, combine some funding sources, get some economy of scale, and have one contractor in there, we do look to do that wherever we can.
Thank you.
So moving on to the Norman Forward Fund. The majority of the larger projects are wrapping up in Norman Forward, so there's not too many appropriations in this fund this year. We have the neighborhood park improvements for $650,000, the lease payments for the Griffin land at $80,000, the 1% dedicated public art projects, that's $21,000, and then the three various debt service categories for the 2015, 17, and 2020 bonds being paid out of the Norman Forward Fund.
And that lasts for how many, 5 more years?
That's a good question.
wraps up 2030.
2030. Okay, that's the easy way, thank you.
Yeah.
Are we currently servicing $6 million worth of bonds from 2015? Is that how that reads? It seems like it would be, the 2020 bonds would be the lesser amount and the 2015 bonds would be the lesser amount and the 2020 bonds would be the greater amount. I'm just curious.
I'm sorry, can you repeat
Back that slide up one, Jacob, for the debt, yeah, that one right there.
So in the upcoming budget, we're paying $6 million worth of bond debt from 2015.
We do know there are several community groups, all brainstorming ideas for the Norman Forward 2 question. It's a scenario that does not require council wait until 2030. The question can be asked when it's most opportune and when the list is right, and council will be able to determine, all pay-go, some pay-go, how much is debt, or we just pace it differently than we were needing to do in Norman Forward 1, just to make sure we had some great success early on. So I'm having a feeling sometime during the next fiscal year, there'll be some serious public conversations about what could be. And I'm glad there's lots of folks out there in the community who have a vision, and that's what it's gonna take. It'll be things that accountants, I don't think that way about what is possible on a blank canvas. But those groups are out there actively working on, and we hope they're big and bold and really impactful, and then let us figure out how to pay for them. It's better than underscoping this type of work. It needs to be visionary and big.
So just to be clear, 9,648,688, is that that's what total we're paying this year in debt service for Norman Forward projects?
And those bonds mature in 2029, 2030, and 2031,
So,
July 1 of each year.
yeah, I think just again, thinking about potential as a community, if we are able to have some patience in the future, that if we can wait a little bit longer for projects to get done, $9 million, almost $10 million, it's like a whole nother project we could do.
And you ponder the poker hand that it really comes down to. If you could determine what interest rates would be, and then what the inflation factor and construction cost would be, you could make perfect decisions on, hey, cost of construction's going up faster than we should borrow the money and build it while it's cheap. And those are just things, it's anybody's guess is as good as anybody
And
else's.
the interest rates for these were,
Good.
if I understand, were much lower than today's, so
2.3%.
this is what it costs with, like, maybe even historic, we were less than 1%.
Yeah, we had some 0.9 percenters out there and some debt instruments that Mr. Francisco took us through, so timing's everything.
And kind of add on to what Daryl was saying too, is that traditionally, when we start factoring out these master plans, so if we master plan today, the cost is this, but every year you add on to that, that's a additional 3%. So you have to balance
Yeah.
your debt service
Put that in the
or
equation
your
too.
how much interest is gonna be with the cost of construction, and then you don't know what's gonna happen. COVID made everything go up 30% in 1 year, so.
Never came
That's a
back.
good point too,
Yeah.
yeah, factoring in how much we think stuff might cost versus how much debt service we might pay. It's good.
At least that's fixed.
Until 29.
So that's all I have for you this evening. Any questions or comments?
Kim, what's next on the calendar for the budget adoption process?
Another good question, but I have that. Oh, actually, it's May 20th is enterprise funds. Yeah. So that'll be Chris, myself, Nathan, and capital projects, operating budget for enterprise funds, everything.
Tough crowd.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate the information. Item number 2, Discussion regarding proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations as it relates to definitions and references to the city's comprehensive plan to come forward with the adoption of Plan Norman Comprehensive Plan and the subsequent plans, i.e. Parks Master Plan, Stormwater Master Plan, Transportation Master Plan, Water Master Plan, and the Wastewater Master Plan.
This morning, Councilmember Grant stopped in and we had a copy of the entire Ames body of work printed out on the table. We just printed one, just to actually see what it looked like. And it was 2,400 pages of amazing work, and it's a big old stack of paper, so Ms. Muckala will walk us through the process to actually take action on that impressive stack. Absolutely.
volumes is that?
It'll be
It's
available
fast.
for the planning commission to just kind of take a peek at, so.
And I love the introduction because actually the ordinance part of it is a lot simpler. We tried to streamline this, so that should be good news for tonight anyway. But hello, my name is Beth Muckala. I'm an assistant city attorney here. And I wanted to go through two separate ordinances that are updates. You are probably aware and you've seen in some of the staff reports, we have language throughout our code that actually references our comprehensive plan and the different components of it, such as the land use portion of the transportation portion. So we need to refresh those. We're actually catching some really old references in some places, so we have a scheme to make it all, well, for lack of this is a really good term, make it comprehensive. And apply in every situation, so I wanted to take you through those today. Okay, so we have two separate ordinances. The first one combines all of those revisions that are going to be outside the zoning ordinance, and really that's only in two chapters. There's one reference in chapter 20, and then the rest of them are found in the subdivision regulations, which obviously makes a lot of sense. And then the other ordinance, 2425-32, that's all of the revisions within the zoning ordinance itself. And there are a few more in there, as you might imagine. But the first, biggest, and most important part of our revisions are simply the definitions. So as I alluded to, we tried to make the comprehensive plan definition a sort of master reference to all of the different master plans that are within the AIM Norman, the Area and Infrastructure Master Plan process. So those ended up being the land use plan, the transportation plan update, wastewater master plan, water utility, the parks master plan, the housing plan, and also the stormwater master plan update. So really, all of those have always been components of our comprehensive plan. But as you know, in the past, we've had combined land use and transportation plans, and we've called things by different titles. Well, we're trying to make it super clear that when we say comprehensive plan, we're talking about all of them as the AIM Norman package. And then if we're individually referring to one of those particular ones, we call those out. And when we're referring to the particular ones, we try to really stay true to what our code has already said in most cases. So that's the majority of what you're going to see in the versions that were attached to your packet tonight. But going through the individual ones, okay, so there's only one in chapter 20, that's our licensing provisions. This actually relates to fencing as it relates to oil and gas wells here in the city. This is language that's been in our licensing provisions for a long time. Fencing and setbacks are one of those things that state law still uniquely places within the purview of cities. So we needed to make sure that this language was up to date, and so that's what we've done. The previous language, and I believe you can see that at the very beginning of the draft in 20-1910. But the previous language referred to current urban service area, which, as you know, is a very unique term to our current land use plan. So when our new land use plan goes into play, we needed a way to identify the applicability of this provision. So in just looking at it geographically, the current urban service area of the past plan generally fell between 48 West and 48 East. And so to stay as true as possible to what was already there, those are the parameters that we've chosen to recommend there. So essentially, that's not really a change. It's just to smooth the process and make sure we know how to apply it if it comes up. So that's chapter 20. chapter 30, there's a few references, and the first ones I list here, those several sections, that's essentially implementing the definitions that I just talked about. And I won't go through those, they're pretty self-explanatory, but I'm happy to answer questions if you have them. Okay, on 30-105, this is the relation to zoning provision within the subdivision code, and it does just what it says. It talks about how zoning and subdivision interact. And it's simply adding a reference that is already found in 30-301, which references conforming with the minimum requirements of the comprehensive plan and this code. That language has simply been repeated in this provision for consistency purposes. On 30-606, this is the one substantive implementation of the new comprehensive plan that will be presented to council soon. This relates to Norman Rural Certificates of Survey. So certificates of survey are allowed in very particular areas of Norman, obviously rural areas, and within certain zoning districts. And additionally, they are only allowed under certain situations and as an exception to the requirement of platting. Essentially, you don't have to go through the entire plat process in order to get a building permit to develop if you meet those parameters. I don't want to get into the land use plan. I know we've talked about this part of it actually a lot, but I just wanted to harken back to some of those previous discussions regarding the 2045 reserve and the other, can you remind me of the name of the land use area?
To the new
Yeah, 2045 reserve character area and the urban reserve. As you know, there's the 30-acre minimum requirement that we've talked about. So this is the one easy to implement going forward provision. We see more rural certificates of survey in those reserve areas than we do plats right now. So this is literally just that first step forward of implementing our new 20-year plan. That in the reserve, the urban reserve land use area, there will be a 30-acre minimum to bring a certificate of survey. And so you'll see that language in there on your draft. I believe it's at pages 180 and 181 of the packet.
Yes, sir. And then, just to ask on the record, that's not a workaround for the plating process. It's almost like a parallel tract. Am I understanding that right? The certificate of survey?
It's a subdivision that's particularly recognized by the city of Norman as technically an exception or a variation to the plating process.
Okay.
But yes,
Okay.
it's very similar, and of course you see them all the time.
Okay, just make sure. Thank you.
Oh, also, I didn't get into this, but we also changed the language within 30-606, again, to make it clear where, according to the new land use plan, those areas that are able to do COSs are found. Okay, so chapter 36, that first list is again, just the very basic implementation of the new definitions. Please let me know if you have questions about those. The next group, those four sections, which are 509, 510, 560, and 571, these are references to the comprehensive plan in the context of making zoning-related decisions. 510 and 509, those are PUD, or SPUD and PUD. And then 560 relates to special uses, and 571 is just the general zoning amendment provisions of the zoning ordinance. So references to the comprehensive plan were already found in the PUD and SPUD sections. This is nothing new, it's just an update to language there. We are adding it to special uses and to the zoning amendments section in very much the same nature that it's already found in the PUD and SPUD provisions. It's being referenced as considering applications in the context of whether it's consistent with the new land use plan or with the comprehensive plan that's in place. By saying consistent with, we're avoiding a hard factor analysis. It's just one of many factors that will be considered. It makes our actions more intentional. You saw planning's explanation of the new staff reports you'll be seeing. This is the language that we're putting in place to signal that that's what we're going to be doing in staff reports now, to better inform you of that consistency or inconsistency. And of course, you know, zoning, comprehensive plan, all of those decisions, subdivision, they're based on the police power of a municipality, that public health, safety, morals, general welfare. You can't act arbitrarily and capriciously in making decisions, nor in passing this language. The reason we feel this is particularly a good time to do this is because we're going to be between those plans. And this allows us to help give you glimpses into the new land use plan while the code language itself is still not matching up exactly with it. But one thing that you do need to be aware, when we have more specific zoning code provisions that are passed, those will control over a general guidance in a comprehensive plan. So we're still in that transition period. In order to fully implement it, that's what revisions to the subdivision ordinance and the zoning ordinance are going to do.
Do we have an update on the timing with that? I know that we had secured federal grant money to accomplish that, which is in flux.
Supposedly it's in the bank.
Okay,
I mean, we've had staff that said they've seen it.
okay, that's better than it was.
Right,
Yep.
and the plan is right now, July 1, to have the RFP out, ready to go.
Excellent, great news, thank you.
The community separator one, so between Franklin and Indian Hill, the little river area. So what does that mean for that? Not, or by striking it, does it mean we're not going to try as hard to protect that area? Or does it, what is it?
Oh, absolutely not. The protections will be laid out in the new land use plan. It just won't be laid out in the language that is specifically utilized. The Northern Community Separator District was an overlay district that specifically corresponded to a section of the current land use plan, which will be obsolete on June 24th if this is adopted by council. But of course, the new plan does have.
It does, definitely has the protections, but also I was gonna say, we've got the WQPZ now that we didn't have in 2004. So, and Scott wants to speak more about that, the areas up there that do have the, you know, as it moves forward and it's platted, the WQPZ would be the protective measure up there. So we're getting rid of that 250-foot setback, which didn't really have any provisions for protections. It was just bringing it back off the road for development, you know, single-family homes and stuff.
So as Mayor Coleman said, yes, 36-538, that's essentially just striking that entire provision. Just above it, I don't want to leave this out, 36-513 is our residential estates zoning district. And it references language specific to the old land use plan, I think suburban residential growth area. So we need to modify that to other terminology that more closely references areas in the new land use plan. So you'll see that. And then finally, 36-545, similarly to the Chapter 20 provision, referenced current urban service area. So, and again, we have replaced it with between the 48s, essentially. So this is the timeline. I'm sure you all are very well aware of it, but this Thursday, the Planning Commission will be reviewing these ordinances as well as the 7 master plans that are in the AIM-Norman Comprehensive Plan. The first reading for these ordinances is planned for June 10th, and the second reading, along with consideration of the resolutions adopting all 7 master plans, will come to you on June 24th. And I'm happy to answer any more specific questions than I got into in my presentation.
Questions from council?
Got one, and it's kind of silly. I noticed in the fencing for the oil and gas, so outside of 48, there's a well, so it's been there forever. Doesn't need a fence because nobody's within 600 feet, if that's what I read right. But then if somebody moves in within 600 feet, it's on the operator of basically the pump jack and the batteries and that. Then they have to fence it. It's not on the person that moved in closer to them.
It's not. You're correct that is the way it's written, and that's how it's existed for a while. Now, our licensing provisions for oil and gas, they are subject to review by the BOA. We've historically seen variances brought in exactly that situation. A particularly memorable one was where the landowner appeared to support it because they wanted the wild turkeys to be able to graze in that area. So we've seen those in the past, and
Okay, so the landowner, or somebody that moves in close can say, don't put the fence up. Okay,
They
I'm
can work with the operator. We've seen that happen.
good with all that. I just,
Mhm.
just kind of dumb question that I had.
Not at all.
Anything else? Thank you, Beth.
And, Councilmember Dixon, City Attorney Beth Muckala is our gas and oil attorney in that respect, and I have watched that lady put on classes for communities all around the metro, and they come to listen to Beth share what she knows about how state laws work and mineral rights and all that kind of thing. So we're fortunate, we maintain that expertise in-house.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. So we are.